gosh, no brace.
It's moving.
I'm not limping. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the knee.
It's not 100% all better, but it's.
Did your doctor ever say anything you got not crossing your legs like mine did? Sorry about that.
Yeah.
It's a hard habit to break.
But they also say the femur is a hard bone to break, but I did it, so.
Yeah.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock, May the 30th. I'll bring the Board of Selectmen's meeting to order, starting with a roll call from my right.
Paul Sanderson.
Justin Rocky. Vaughn Morgan.
Jim Ralston. Chip Huzzy.
And we have a quorum, and the meeting is being recorded. All right, the first order of business is under appointments. And we have with us this evening Sarah Rowe of Renita Drive in Greenland, who has requested to be appointed to the Conservation Commission.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Neighbor.
Neighbor. You met her a few weeks ago with her.
So, you'd like to join the Conservation Commission?
I would.
Well, I think they could use, I read your letter and it was very impressive. And it sounds to me like they could use somebody like you.
I think it would be a great opportunity. I'd like to be able to work to bring the public in more to what is going on in the community this way.
Great, wonderful. Well, we appreciate anybody that volunteers and step up to the plate because we need as many volunteers as we can get around here.
Understand?
Yeah. I believe I spoke with Laura Baergo today, and she was impressed with your credentials, and
Okay.
I think is looking forward to having you on board also.
Well, thank you.
So, does the board have any questions for Sarah?
Not questions, just comment.
Comment?
If you are successful in being appointed, make two suggestions to you. First is New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions. They have a great website, so there's lots of material on there where you can get training and get started.
Okay.
And the second suggestion is come to the planning board now and then to see what they're doing and how they're working, and let your thoughts be known.
I would like to start coming to the planning board on a regular basis if I can get one of my work meetings moved.
Okay.
So that is a goal of mine. It has been since November.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Looks good to me, thank you.
All right.
Okay. I will entertain a motion.
I'll move to appoint Sarah Rowe to the Conservation Commission with term to expire 2020.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Welcome aboard. Okay. The second item is the approval of the minutes from May 15th. Does anybody have any changes or alterations or comments?
No, move we approve as read.
Second?
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, the third order of business is a Coakley update.
What I'd like to do is just update the board that the draft letter, which had been amended by the board, went back out to the board, was sent to the Portsmouth officials as a second draft for their review. I spoke with Brian Getz last Tuesday, and he explained that everything was being reviewed by Attorney Sullivan, and that he would be back with me shortly, although Attorney Sullivan wanted to speak with Mr. Sanderson directly by phone and asked if that would be okay. Passed along his number. To date, I don't believe he's contacted you.
There was no call.
Okay. We did receive a letter this afternoon or late this morning from the city of Portsmouth regarding the Coakley issue and the letter, stating that they have amendments that the town of Greenland has rejected. I can tell you emphatically that we have not received any amendments. No amendments have been rejected. There has been no contact other than it currently being reviewed. So I think that it's probably appropriate for us in non-public to discuss how we want to handle this, and I believe it would fall under the reputation, that we don't want to damage the reputation of a neighboring,
And also, it is a pending legal matter.
but it's not filed in writing.
No, that's true. Although certainly there are potential claims out there, one way or another, either way.
Right.
It's just important that before we have any more meetings with Portsmouth, we get instructions from the board as a whole.
Correct.
Okay,
But I do know that Representative Mesner was contacting the city of Portsmouth today to set up another meeting after being asked not to.
okay. And I read the letter, and I read the letter that we sent to them. I know it was sent to them. And I read the letter that Attorney Sullivan wrote back to us. It is my opinion that Attorney Sullivan is being disingenuous about this whole thing. I want to go on record as saying that. I think time is of the essence in this matter. Representative Mesmer has gone on television on Sunday and let it be known to the whole state that this money is available. We were told by Senator Morse that this is basically going to be a first come, first serve. And that I am, I'm upset about the whole thing. And I just want to go on record as saying that, so.
And it potentially, I mean, the board could discuss this in public, if so desired. It is correspondence from an attorney, but it's not based on a current litigation. And what I have done for the board, if the conversation goes to that direction, is I have redone the letter to Senator Morse with just the Greenland signatures.
Okay. All right, and I am, as a board member, I'm not crazy about doing a lot of non-public sessions. I know that one of our neighboring towns ran into that problem, and it was all over the paper. So I will, at the end of this session, ask for a vote, a roll call to go into non-public if you would like to.
Before you're non-public, I'd like to be able to at least read what they sent back.
Sure.
Yeah.
Would you like me to read it out loud?
No.
Okay.
Oh, you have a copy there?
Before I put my foot in my mouth, I want to put it, see how far I'm going to choke on it. All right?
Sure,
Alright.
absolutely. And I'm giving a copy to Chet to read. And I'm going to suggest to you, based upon what Karen has said and what I know, he at least has his facts wrong, in the sense that we have received nothing back from them from a draft. I received no call from Attorney Sullivan, and Karen has received no draft back with multiple back and forth. That just has not occurred. So his facts are wrong.
I have no problem just holding off on,
Okay.
I just glanced through that, but just seeing it, if the facts of that cockeyed, I think he needs to send us what he forgot to send us.
And I think that when we drafted the letter with the board's input, we pointed out the emergency and the dire circumstances of that area based on the PFCs leaching from the Copley landfill as well as the 1,4-dioxane. That appears to be what the city of Portsmouth is concerned about, sharing that information. Feeling that if there is a responsible party that we won't get the money. But if we don't have the emergency, we're not going to get the money.
Yes.
Okay.
And just so the public knows, at the end of it, he's asked me to have a meeting where we can sit down and redraft the letter. And I'm perfectly happy to meet with him. I have no problem with that. But we will correct his factual error at that meeting.
If that's the direction the board wants to.
I think it makes it simpler because obviously we're missing something that he supposedly has and we don't.
Yeah.
So I think that would save a lot of time, and we're going to have to sit down with him anyway.
Right. The other part I can tell you is that the MTBE fund is the subject of a provision in what they call the trailer bill. And I know, Jim, you know what I'm talking about. Every 2 years when they do the state budget, there is a primary bill that is the state budget, and then there's a second bill called the trailer, which puts other provisions that are needed to implement the budget into law. And so here in the trailer bill, there is the creation of a new committee to administer the MTBE money. And that is going to be considered by the Senate on either Wednesday or Thursday. They're having a very strange session this week in that the Senate is meeting on Wednesday and Thursday, The reason is they've got to get some budget bill passed out of the Senate in order to send it over to the House for them to disagree and create a committee of conference. So that second part is likely to happen on Thursday.
Okay. All right. So we'll revisit this at the end of the meeting then. Okay, the next order of business is the investment policy.
And this is an annual policy that the board is required to have under RSA 41-9. And this is not the investment policy that the trustees of the trust funds use to invest trust funds. This is the cash flow of the town that is handled through the treasurer. So this is the same policy that we've had in past years that have been approved by the auditors. It's a very safe policy to maintain liquidity. And it has to, the banks have to be located within the state of New Hampshire with bricks and mortar and fully collateralized at 102%.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
Okay. This particular policy is only dealing with the town's regular operating cash, not its invested cash to the trustees of the trust fund.
Yep. And I did make a correction on the final page where it had our old address of 575 Portsmouth Ave. That has been corrected to 11 Town Square.
Okay. So far as the treasurer, we have Tina as our treasurer. Who is our deputy?
Sharon McLaughlin Hussey.
Okay, great.
They switched roles.
Okay. That's the only question I had.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the annual investment policy.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
This just needs to be signed by the chairman.
Okay, moving right along, we'll go along to the fund balance policy.
Again, an annual policy that sets the town's parameters between what the GFOA or the Government Finance Officers Association recommends to maintain a cash balance, basically. There's definitions of what this fund balance covers. It's restricted fund balance, things that have been donated for certain reasons, encumbered articles, committed warrant article money that just hasn't been spent, assigned fund balance, which has specific items, and then the unassigned fund balance. That is the part where this policy plays into effect. The unassigned fund balance is the difference when we appropriated $10 million but only spent 9.7. There'd still be $300,000 appropriated that was raised by taxes available. And we estimated revenues to come in at $5 million. They came in at $5,300,000. So now we have $600,000 extra. That more revenue than we thought, and we didn't spend all the money. That money is what lapses into what's called this unassigned fund balance. It's really good for a town this size and a budget this size to maintain a $1 million fund balance. Shouldn't be any lower than that. We have dipped down to like 653 while I've been here, but knowing that the next year was already going to be a good year. But 1 million keeps us as a solid cash flow. So we can pay bills right up through now when first half tax money is just starting to roll in. So it keeps us solvent basically, and we're not borrowing in anticipation of the tax money. Each year when the audit is completed, we know what happens to the fund balance, how much we actually didn't spend and how much revenue was over. At tax budget time, I estimated we'd be adding $500,000 to our undesignated fund balance between those two pots. So the board voted to use $425 of that money at town meeting to deposit into various savings accounts, capital reserve funds. I was close, but not close enough. We actually increased the fund balance by $515,000. So our fund balance going into the tax rate setting is going to be 1.854. which is very healthy. It gives us room to either add more funds into capital reserve funds at town meeting time. It gives us room to reduce any impact to the tax rate that the school budget, we know the school budget predicted a $1 increase. Some of this may be able to help offset that. But that's a selectmen's decision that we will do right around September, October.
Yeah, Chester, for your first year, this is much more complicated.
Well, and that's the nutshell in the square.
Karen gave you a very good summary, but as we go through this, please stop us and make us explain each point, okay? Because if you are uninformed, it looks as though the town is holding aside $1.85 million that we could use to reduce our taxes immediately and make all of our tax bills go down. That's not the case. That's not correct. And we will explain in great detail why that's not correct.
Right, we definitely want to keep $1 million.
Yes. But I mean, if someone were to look at that number, they'd say, oh my goodness, what are they doing? It's way too high, they could be way much lower. And that's not so.
Right, and that's why we annually do this fund balance policy, so that we do set as prioritizations that the town will strive to maintain the unassigned fund balance in its general fund equal to 5 to 17% of the total appropriation of the community. That's the number that's recommended by the Government Finance Board.
Yeah.
Never go lower than 5, because if you have 5 people not pay their tax bill, you're in trouble.
Or one hurricane.
Right, or one hurricane that we need to have emergency money. But our tax collections are excellent, so we are able to keep it rolling. But you can have a bad year and people can't pay their taxes.
Yeah.
You need cash flow.
And to prove what Karen is saying, last year, we were able to take $425,000 of the balance, put it aside in savings accounts for things that people already told us they wanted to eventually have, and still reduce the tax rate.
Right.
So therefore, that's why.
Right, we used $250 to reduce the tax rate and $425 into capital reserve funds.
Yeah, on items the town had already voted to accomplish eventually. So we will,
Good job.
as we go through the budgetary process, you'll see in great detail as we go through each one how the decisions are made. But don't let this number, say, whoa, when you first see it, you think, oh my goodness, we could really make taxes go down. That's just not the case.
Yeah, because that's what the town of Newmarket did for a while. And they got into a lot of trouble because they had no money left over to do anything with. This does, we have some major issues we have to deal with probably right now and in the very near future. And so it's going to help to have this money. If we need to go out and borrow money, get bonds and things like that, having this really helps us out.
Okay, with all that in mind, I'd like to move that we approve the fund balance policy as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, Vaughn, I just need that page signed as well.
Okay, next on the agenda is the Comcast franchise.
Extension. What we did is I talked with Comcast after we had the presentation about better options or different options than going with the Channel 22. And the committee being slow to get started, we do have 2 people that are interested in being on a cable committee. After talking with the board, I talked with Comcast about doing an extension to our current agreement rather than an actual renewal. So what I have for the board is a 2-year extension to our current contract. So it keeps everything status quo, 1% franchise fee, extends the deadline to April 13th of 2019, giving a committee a year and a half to get organized, review the actual contract, which is 100 pages, make recommendations, public hearings, things like that.
Okay.
And we don't lose out on any of the franchise payments while we are not under a contract, which could happen.
Okay. Any questions, comments? I'll entertain a motion.
I move to extend the current Comcast franchise agreement for a 2-year period to April 13, 2019.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
And this is for all of the board to sign. See if I can keep the, comes back.
Okay, does anybody have any other old business they would like to?
I believe that, well, it was at our last meeting, Mr. Schwab gave a brief presentation about a grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities to digitalize the history of Greenland. And I got a call from him this evening saying that basically he's working on it still. It should be done by the deadline, which is June 1st. He has secured one of the folks from the Portsmouth Athenaeum who volunteered to help us out. And everything seems to be going along pretty well.
Good.
Yep, I met with them on Wednesday to finish up. The town of Greenland is actually going to be the applicant. It wasn't working. The library trustees weren't able to do it. It was kind of funky, but municipalities were allowed to be an applicant.
Okay.
So it's all going under the town of Greenland's name, with me being the project administrator, but Mr. Schwab being the contact person.
Okay. And so are they going to be able to get any equipment under this grant?
Yes, that's what the grant is. It's an equipment grant, and it would be for large format scanner, small format scanner, computer, and printers, and software that is a reverse, like Dragon software, but it's reverse.
Yeah.
So Mr. Hughes, the plan is at this point, Mr. Hughes has reams and reams and reams of handwritten and hand-typed documents. He will be able to read it into this software program, which will then create an audio recording that we can play, as well as create an indexable Word document.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great. Modern miracles.
Yeah, and it's based on a lot of the library research on how to preserve old documents.
Great.
And so then it comes into PDFA format, and we just,
I don't know, I've gotten the name, the Time Perfect is the name of the software.
okay. Yeah. But that's great. Wonderful.
And it's the Portsmouth Athenaeum that has helped him coordinate the specific details.
Okay.
And at this point, the plan is that they would be housed in the back room behind my office where the assessor is. There's empty space now that's just been storage. The desk will go back there. And they're going to have a team of volunteers that will go back there to scan the documents. And at the point where the library is finished and has their resource reading historical area, most of the equipment will be then transferred to the Weeks Public Library as equipment.
Wow, great.
Excellent.
If we get the grant now, once it's submitted, we have to keep our fingers crossed.
Okay, well, I'd like to thank Mr. Schwab for his work and cross our fingers, I guess, right?
I thanked him tonight.
Okay, that was jumping ahead to the town administrator's report, but any other old business anybody would like to bring up?
Yeah, I just want to say I talked with Paul, he's caught up with all his mowing work to get ready for Memorial Day, so we're going to start on a lot of the, checking on, getting prices on the cosmetic stuff that needs to be done to the front town office, and then move backwards to get prices on the fire station and bringing that up to par.
Good. All right. Excellent. Okay, under new business, we have town administrators report. Does anybody have any, you want to kind of brief us on the phone service?
The phone service is something it's kind of exciting for us, and I'm still looking at the costs. I was out for a couple of days last week, so I wasn't able to really look into the bills and make that cost comparison that I wanted to. But Comcast has a program that's the Voice over IP, which is not really new technology, but it's not technology that we can use with our current phone system. We currently use Bayring. We have 3 lines coming in, 2 that are dedicated to the 4317111 line, and 1 that's dedicated to the building department. There's oftentimes that people will call here and call again and say, I kept getting a busy signal.
Right.
Well, it's a busy office. It is easily that the building inspector, myself, and 1 of the 3 people in the other room are on a phone line. It happens frequently. So what this system will then do is we really don't want more than 3 lines coming into the building and having phones going unanswered. You only just have so many people that can actually answer a phone if they're all ringing. But this will eliminate that problem by our same 3 lines will come in. Comcast would provide us with the new equipment that's voice over IP. Each phone will be assigned to a desk with an extension. Right now, if you call in 431, you get the auto attendant, and you can pick a department. So you pick town clerk, all 3 phones in that room ring. And my phone is the main line, so my phone rings when that phone rings. If you call the building department, those 2 phones ring and my phone rings. And so it's made it redundant enough that, one or the other can answer the phone, but everybody's phone has to ring, and it ties up the line. This you will be able to, you'll get your auto attendant. If you're looking to call the town clerk's office, press 1, and it will ring immediately at only 1 desk. If you don't, and then Marge, as the department head, if you know your party's extension, you're looking for the town clerk, press 2. The bookkeeper, press 3, rather than a department. The building inspector, the building inspector's clerk. So all 11 of us can be on the phone at the very same time. It is a little bit more expensive. Right now we're paying, $125 a month. I think the estimate, and it's always based on usage, is looking at like $216 a month. It's new equipment that we don't own. If something breaks, they just replace the phone. Our current equipment was replaced about 11 years ago. It is no longer supported. It's a Nortel system. It's no longer supported. I approached the board last year in the budget process to replace the phone system, and that at the time it was not cost effective, or it didn't make the cut anyway. So the phones have lasted another year. I have no reason to believe they won't last another year. But this may be an opportunity to get the new equipment at no cost and improve efficiency. I don't have the final details with the numbers, so I'm not looking for a decision from the board, but this is get you up to speed. Right now, the Comcast technician came in last Monday, and did the inspection of our lines and our system to make sure that we're compatible. And then they are putting together their report to present to us.
Okay, so you'll bring that up to us when you get all the information.
Unless the board tells me we're not interested now, and then I can put the brakes on everything.
No, I'm interested.
I know staff was very excited about it.
I'm interested too. I would like to have the report consider cell service as well,
Right, okay.
just because Comcast is now getting in that business.
Yeah, and I did not have a chance last week to ask them to add that on.
Just so we know what that would be.
Yeah, I've got a little bit of catching up to do.
And Bayring itself is not interested?
Bayring itself is not Bayring anymore.
Well, that's right, I see the chance sign.
Now they aren't even, they're not based out of, when we went with Bayring, they were a Bennington-based company. Now they're one line or a line. I know the last time we called in trouble on the fire department phone, a strange company called me back and I'm like, who? Formerly known as Bayring. I'm like, all right, fine.
Okay.
But we may be looking at a higher budgeted phone cost, but a more efficient phone system.
Yeah. And with the cell service in there too, that might really bring it out and smooth it out quite a bit.
Absolutely.
Good,
So we'll see.
excellent. Does anybody have any other questions about the town administrator's report? Okay, marking of town vehicles.
Okay, this was something that Selectman Durkee asked me to look into, obtaining town decals for our town vehicles and equipment. So I have contacted the vendor that made our magnets, and we can get 2 different size decals. It ended up being, I think it was 14 decals total that I counted over there for less than $100. It's the same type of decals that are put onto the police vehicles, the vinyl, instead of the magnets that get blown off on windy days or get taken off and forgot to put back on. And currently we only have magnets on the truck. We don't have markings on our trailer or any of our rolling stock. It is a good internal control.
Okay. And how about the town car? You get that for that too? also?
I would, because the town car, we take all the labeling off
Mhm.
when it comes over from the police
Right.
department.
Yeah.
So yes.
All right, any comments?
So, sounds good to me. I think it should be procedure, anytime a new piece of equipment comes in, it should be labeled. I think they should all have a reference number.
They all do have
Number.
reference numbers. We do reference them all. We have an asset control system that each has a number with all the backup paperwork in it. It's just not onto the equipment, unless it's the small equipment. On the computers and things, it'll have its asset number, but not on the big things.
Like highway department.
Right, and the
Unit
year purchase and then.
001.
Right, well, our system is like highway, it would be 1701, then 1702, 17, as the year it's purchased
Yeah.
is the first number and then
And then
consecutive, because
yeah.
then we can see how old each computer is, and that's the
Right,
system
yeah.
we've been using.
A lot of fleet trucks run with that as well.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Well,
The all veterans.
I think instead of just nodding, we should actually give you a motion so you can accomplish this.
Okay,
So moved.
Second.
motion to do.
Get her done.
Thank you.
Jim
All right, I have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passed.
Excellent.
Okay, veterans credit?
Yeah, we have 2 more applications for veterans that qualify for the all veterans credit. Again, these won't be effective until the 2018 tax year, but they both qualify. It's for Deborah Hussey and her husband Ronald Hussey.
Okay, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the all veterans credits for Deborah Hussey and Ronald Hussey.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed.
For the record, I will abstain for obvious reasons.
Well, you really don't have to,
Yeah,
because
I wasn't thinking.
you don't have a pecuniary interest in their tax bill,
Right.
but you're more than welcome to abstain. So you don't sign them then?
Okay. Is there any other new business anybody would like to bring up?
I got a few things. It has to do with the fire department. Presently, I'm told that a minimum pay for responding EMT and a firefighter is 1 hour.
Say that again?
When a firefighter and EMT responds to a call, the minimum, they call the tone to the station. It's a minimum pay of only 1 hour.
Mm-hmm.
That on just that face value is illegal. We need to clean that up or pay them $2 hours minimum.
Okay. I think what we should do, you've got several things about the fire department. Does it make sense to call the chief in to talk to us about these so we can get them?
Well, I want to give him, I kind of like to give him a heads up because this is going to be both of these are kind of work issues.
Okay, yep, and this is something that I talked with the chief about before, and they're not required to respond. If he was calling a particular person in requiring them, it is a minimum 2 hours based on Department of Labor. This is a voluntary come in if you want to. So he is legal by doing the 1 hour.
But that's a big gray area where he doesn't have a policy as to it. If I show up and I'm not going to get paid 2 hours, then I'm going to stop showing up. It kind of backfires on you.
Well,
But then again, if you show up and 2 minutes later you disappear, do you really deserve the 2 hours? He's got to clear that up. And that's one of the things I want to.
and it's a very good question. I just thought if we heard from the chief to see what his experience is, you know.
The next thing I'd like to bring up also deals with the fire department. I have never seen anybody hired by the Board of Selectmen. They're always seem to be hired by the chief, and that differs from every other department in this town. And I think we need to clean that up.
Yes, and would have to go back to our warrant article, because it is proper under RSA 154, depending upon how the town voted. It can be proper for a chief to hire. I cannot remember what our warrant article says, whether it's hired by the chief and the chief is appointed by the selectmen, or whether the selectmen appoint everyone. It goes back to our warrant article. And so if we can pull that out, we can resolve that issue.
Okay, I'll find out.
Those are two issues that I was asked about today. And last but not least, the building inspector's letter.
The what?
The building inspector's letter that people were emailed, he emailed us,
About a potential enforcement case.
enforcement's case.
Mm-hmm.
The way I look at it, guys, it's been a year. We need to do something. I get one more person from Vanette and ask me, I'm gonna tell them to get the whole crowd down here and bitch.
I guess my question is, what can we do legally?
Legally, you have an enforcement issue, both zoning and health.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily when the individual is in violation of zoning and then stockpiles it so she doesn't have the square footage. Then she falls under the health because now she's compounding water.
No, you still have to be very careful under 236, I think it's 78. but
Well, I'm not gonna tell you this ain't gonna be easy. But I think it's time we put our big boy panties on and did something about
Well,
this.
there's a difference between a junkyard and a junkie yard. There's two different things. And so we need to get, before we decide what we're going to do, we need to get some more facts from the building inspector as to what is physically
Well,
present.
that's an enforcement problem I'm beginning to see.
Well, I mean, the building inspector does work for us, and we can ask him specific questions to get us specific facts so we can decide whether to authorize something or not.
Yeah, but we really gotta get going on this. It's been over a year, we've had promise after promise after promise. She's demanded, and I think it's time the selectmen start demanding.
I spoke with the building inspector about this issue today. He is working on it, but again, he's a little leery, I think, of getting the town in trouble.
Right. You know, and I don't disagree with you, Chip, believe me, I've had it up to here also with that person, but at the same time, I don't want the town to be wasting legal fees if we have nowhere to go with it. So
No,
my thing is why, if nothing else, let's turn this particular case over to the town attorney and see what the town attorney has to say about it.
That'd actually probably be the best way, but I'm just, I'm just tired of
I-
people.
I-
What are you
I
gonna
don't
do about
disagree
it?
with
What are you
you.
gonna do
Yeah.
about it?
Yeah, I know, I don't disagree with you.
And it all boils down to a family feud, and I am sick and tired of family feuds.
Oh, I know. But I would, get all the information together.
I think we just
and
gotta,
turn it over to the
it
town.
just seems we dropped the ball, and I
See
just
if
don't.
we have any recourse at all.
All right,
But
so,
I don't disagree with you, believe me,
so you want me to direct the building inspector to discuss this with Attorney Laughlin?
yes.
Are we sure that Peter is the right person to deal with this particular case?
Land
seeing-
use,
Seeing that he doesn't do any circuit court enforcement.
I think that because he understands land use well, as far as the zoning and that kind of stuff, he may
No,
at least be able to point this.
I don't mean to suggest he doesn't have substantive knowledge. It's just, if we decide that this is an action that we would file in a circuit court, he does not do that type of work.
I would consult with him to see if he's got a recommendation, then, if he doesn't feel comfortable with it, then we go. Because we also have the health issue with impounding water and all the trash that's there. And that's what it is, it's trash. It's not garbage, it's just junk.
Okay. To be very careful about that one, because we'd have to rely on state statute. Okay, and our health officer, as far as I know, has not made any particular determination about that.
I don't think the health officer's been really involved with that one yet.
Well, then that's why I'd be really careful about that one,
I think the health officer should be involved with it.
potentially.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening.
Right, we're getting close to mosquito season, so,
What I'm saying is, the health officer had no problem walking on a commercial piece of property and talking to somebody. I think it's time to,
Understand also, you don't just walk on property. Our local officials don't just enter. They have to notice ahead of time and be given permission. And if they're not given permission, they have to get an administrative inspection warrant. You do not have the authority to just wander around.
I didn't realize that.
But that's key.
Okay, understand my frustration. I got
Oh,
people
I-
asking me what we're gonna do.
And
And I says, it's been over a year, guys. I've only been here 4 months. I'll stir the pot, see what comes up.
Stirring the pot is fine, and I don't blame you for being frustrated. We're all frustrated. Okay, but step by step with care, or believe me, you will have problems you don't want.
No, I'm
Step
sure
by
that
step.
that might be somebody's looking for too.
Well, I think it is entirely prudent to have our building inspector gather facts, entirely prudent to have Peter Laughlin talk to, and then we'll decide from there. But we're not going to have people wandering around. Okay, that's a trespass. People can get arrested for that. Our people can get arrested for that. So therefore, step by step, permission or administrative inspection warrant.
Okay, so if you can, ask our building inspector to get in touch with the town attorney regarding this.
right, and if he feels it's something that he can handle or a recommendation for someone
Right,
that is, can do some circuit.
because I've had complaints too, so I do know what I'm talking
constant.
about, yeah. Okay. All right, is there any other new business? Let's go through the accounts payable.
Okay. Payroll manifest number 11, I'd like to move to approve the amount of $49,852.65.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor? Motion passes.
Accounts payable for the ambulance special revenue account, manifest number 1, in the amount of $15,007.69.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Accounts payable for the police special revenue fund in the amount of $430.
Second.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
And then finally, the general fund accounts payable in the amount of $854,173.54, including $791,000 transfer to the school department.
Yeah.
Second. Motion, do I have a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, getting back to the Coakley. Does someone want to make a motion to go into non-public?
Actually, considering that we talked most of what was in this particular letter, I'm happy to discuss it in public and get you instructions about what to do.
Okay.
Do you want to read through the letter again?
And did you see the letter that was sent to them too? Okay.
Given the text of the letter that was sent into Portsmouth for review, I can understand why he would, to some extent, say that we were looking to completely absolve ourselves and put difficulties over onto them. And
We won't get any money for that.
well, certainly, we have to completely absolve ourselves because, as we have said so many times, we contributed absolutely nothing to the problem.
Right.
So that part, I think the instruction stays the same. We will completely absolve ourselves because we are completely blameless here.
Right.
Okay. As to the rest of it, I think Karen expressed it very well, saying no one is trying to set forth anything that hasn't already been adjudicated in 1992 by a federal court. Okay.
And I used the data and even some of the sentence structure directly from the EPA's finding of significant differences.
Yes, that's already on public record. There's not any attempt to create any new theory of liability or new responsibility or anything else. But as you stated, if we don't say why there's a problem and why it needs to be dealt with now, then we're not going to have a particularly high score when people take a look at it.
Right.
And I think everybody agrees with that. And I guess the question is, where do we take it from here?
The option is to meet with Portsmouth and listen to them and see what they want to take out of this letter. Then rewrite the letter again and get both of it to send in. Option 2, sign the letter just from the town of Greenland, and Greenland asks for the money.
You know, that was something that I considered. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't support that only because we can't proceed by ourselves.
That's what I was thinking.
Only because we don't know how to engineer it. We're not going to connect it. We don't have the authority to go into Portsmouth to do things. I don't think that we have the ability to proceed on our own unless we were building our own water system, which is not something that we've undertaken to do. I think we either are working together on this or this project is not going to happen.
Have we had any luck at all in retaining legal counsel on this? None whatsoever.
None whatsoever.
Have we thought about going outside the New England area if we have to?
We
I'm
can,
serious, really, you know, but
yeah.
because it seems like Portsmouth has every law firm in New England.
Well, and it may not just be Portsmouth.
Coakley
I think
Group.
it's between the Coakley Group, but it's also Waste Management,
Mhm.
which is a national company.
And the Air Force and the Navy.
Right.
And so what I was going to suggest is that we have a discussion with Conservation Law Foundation to see if they have any ideas. Because they are adverse to Portsmouth in every,
Wastewater treatment plant.
as we have said, they have sued Portsmouth on every part of the water cycle except evaporation.
And we have
Water going in, water going out.
Well, all right, well, you know, I'd be up for that. We, you know, it seems like we're in the right. We have a good case here, and we can't seem to do anything with it because.
Now, as we go forward here, let me just read to you who's going to be on this new Groundwater Advisory Commission if this passes through the Senate. This is part of the trailer bill. Just to show you how big it's going to be. The State Treasurer, 2 members of the House of Representatives, 2 members of the Senate, the Governor or designee, Director, Division Public Health Services, Health and Human Services, Commissioner of DES, Director of Economic Development, Executive Director of Fish and Game Department, 1 representative of the New Hampshire Water Pollution Control Association, 1 representative of the New Hampshire Business Community, 1 representative of State or Regional Land Trust, 1 representative of the New Hampshire Waterworks Association, 1 public member with business experience related to the creation of clean and safe drinking water, 1 public member representing the interests of citizens receiving their drinking water from private wells, two members from a board of selectmen, a town, or city
Oh, okay,
council.
okay, all
Holy
right. That being said,
This is why I'm saying it's.
Right, the first half is would be very supportive of getting water into this area, and then it starts to get really diverse.
Yes. Not only that, it's a very large decision-making body.
Right,
I mean, trying to get a quorum at a meeting.
right. They had said they wanted it similar to L-Chip, which is like 6 people.
Well, this is more like about 16.
Hmm.
And so I don't know if it's going to pass in this form. This is what the Senate will consider on Thursday. And so that's yet another reason why, if our two communities aren't at least pulling somewhat on the same oar, then we might as well stop right now. Which I don't want to do because of the risk to the health and safety of our citizens.
Right.
I mean, when we think about it, this public water system doesn't do anything for the vast majority of our town. What it does do is it protects the health and safety of affected individuals.
Yep.
Other than that, it creates enormous difficulties.
Paul, do you think you'd be able to talk directly to Attorney Sullivan and get this thing hammered out?
I believe so. Because, first of all, I want to correct him factually.
Yeah.
And secondly, say, okay, you have to develop a balance here. You have to make it compelling enough to compete with Amherst and Litchfield and everybody else. And so you can't say nothing. Plus, the fact of the matter is, you do have responsibility.
Right. I mean, because from reading this letter, it seemed to me that they wanted us, to me, it made Greenland sound greedy. That we want MTBE money to provide water for no good reason.
There wasn't anything in his letter that was designed to make us feel better about anything. So, recognizing that, I'm more than happy to sit down, and Karen and I.
And I'm right, because he did say at the end that I would be welcome to attend.
Yeah, because certainly he won't be alone either.
Right.
Because we'll also be speaking to the city manager. There's no question about that. The other copy went to him.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand the city manager would be there, and it's entirely appropriate that Karen be there for the town of Greenland, of course. And yeah, we've got to develop this balance, otherwise.
So can we make it happen sooner
Yeah.
rather than later?
I'm available any day this week.
I can too. It's a couple
Is
of
there a
hours.
day that's, or time that's better for you? Because it said to schedule it with Raylene, and I can contact her in the morning and say,
The answer
we'll
for
be
me
there
is
on X date at what time?
either earlier or later. The middle of the day is bad, simply
Okay.
because I'm going to be in Concord either early or late.
Right, exactly.
And so I don't care which end of the day, just an end of the day so I can go back and get to work.
Okay, so do we want to try, tomorrow's Wednesday, for Thursday?
That's fine, either morning or afternoon.
All right.
I'm trying to think. I don't think there's anything this Friday. I don't believe I have anything Friday. No, it should be okay. If it had to be Friday, that's okay.
Okay. So 9 o'clock or 3 o'clock, or later than 3?
Or whatever works for them at either end of the day,
Okay,
and I'll make it work.
okay. All right.
Okay? All right, I guess there isn't much more we can discuss about this. Until we find the results out.
But just so far as from the board, the first thing is, we're going to maintain that Greenland is blameless because that's the truth. Okay? The second part is that we would like to proceed with this because the health and safety of our citizens really are impacted. The third part is we have to hammer out the balance that shows enough of an exigent circumstance, and I'm not trying to impose any crazy new liabilities on you guys.
Right.
Okay? So if you think certain language is a problem, well, let's work on it, but we've got to show enough urgency
To get the money.
to get the money.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, if you were listening to Senator Morse carefully, he doesn't want to give much away. He wants this to be a lasting trust fund. If you'll remember from our meeting when we were there, he was talking carefully about, we want this to last, we want this to be an endowment for the future. If all we did was pay for projects now, it would be gone in a year or 2 years, and I can't do that. So therefore, already were being very aggressive, you know, saying, give me a grant for 17 now and I'll pay you back about 6 or 7.
Right.
Something like that, you know. He's gonna say, oh, no.
And I'm sure Greenland, I mean, Portsmouth sees the writing on the wall is that when it came time for us to pay it back is when I would expect that we would then go after that payback money from the Coakley Group.
If in fact, yeah, if in fact the parts there are there, right. We have other ways too where we may not be doing it in cash.
Right.
You know, because
Right.
if the project stops right now, the idea of them getting more protection around Greenland Well, that stops.
That got very expensive.
Yeah. And also, we'll be looking to have municipal water to go into that 50 acres we have behind existing Coakley. And the idea of it being workforce housing will stop.
Mhm.
Okay, that sort of thing. And then the
We can
individuals.
begin discussing with Aquarian.
Yeah. I certainly can tell you from my work what happens when people get excited about an issue and they go on social media. If you saw anything about the Bears this week,
Oh, yeah, well, I meant to ask why you people were being so mean to those bears.
Because they've been showing up in their front doorstep.
look, the important point of that is when that hits social media, 10,000 emails. 10,000 emails. 1,500 of which suggested they go to Clark's and eat ice cream all summer. But, you know, that sort of thing. But I mean, that's the power of social media that we
Right.
sometimes forget.
Right.
Mhm.
If Mindy Mesner were to see this letter that we got today, she would hit the roof.
Yes, she would.
And she would go on social media immediately.
And
She doesn't take no for an answer.
no. And especially when we corrected the facts to say that we didn't receive anything back from them.
Right.
I can understand if they have concerns and we're happy to talk. But no, we didn't get anything back from you.
Right. Well, let's, set up the meeting, all right?
Okay.
And let me know what happens. And we'll just leave it like this, and hopefully you'll come back with some good news. I don't think you will. I think it's going to be, well, let us digest this and
Right.
get back to you.
We'll
But if
see.
you do try to pin them down for a time, they're going to get back to us.
Well,
In other words,
I can suggest this, that I certainly will tell them. If other people feel that you're not reacting quickly enough, you will feel it on social media and it
Right.
will be painful.
right,
And we can say that, I mean, the board has discussed sending the letter without your signatures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or we stop right
show
now.
those to Mindy, our letter and that letter, and say, we have received nothing from them today.
I guess my question would be, should we just politely respond and say, what are you talking about, received any of?
Oh, I will ask, and I thought about calling and asking, could you send me copies of those drafts or,
We haven't got nothing.
and who declined this?
Right.
And I'll certainly confirm, Karen sent me an email in the middle of last week, I expect a call from Attorney Sullivan.
Right.
And I did, and I didn't get one.
And even though I was out Wednesday, part of Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I responded to every email that I got forward. Things that get caught in the junk mail, I review every single
Yeah.
one of them before I delete it.
I'm just looking at dotting the i's and crossing the t's.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Because, what's important here is the health and safety of our citizens.
Right, it's Portsmouth bullying Greenland.
Chester, you agree?
I agree, yeah. Seems like a shakedown.
Yeah.
It's not the first one.
No. This is not unexpected.
Okay. Very good. Make it so, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move. Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Motion passes.